Question: what would be your advice to maybe a young man like sort of like yourself that struggle as far as want to become a Christian, but they see that they making hundreds, thousands of dollars a day selling drugs, but that temptation they might be struggling. What would you be your advice to say, no, I should leave that lifestyle, even though it's so much money that they leaving?
I don't think it's an advice for them people. When I say them, I don't mean to isolate them. I should say I don't mean there is advice for those type of situations or any type of situation. What I think it's going to take overall at the end of the day, this may sound cliche, but the gospel changes men's heart, especially when you look. In most cases, the gospel is presented as something poor. So a person like I know a person just got killed. One of my best friends just got killed. I did the eulogy at his funeral, and since we probably was 14, 15, 16 years old, this dude has had hundreds of thousands of dollars. At one point, probably had $1 million, like in street money. And I talked to him to the day he died, sharing the gospel with him. And I ended up eulogizing his funeral and preaching the gospel over his body to another person that I knew in the audience that at the same time probably had $1 million or $2 million. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, dude owned half of the city. And a month later, he was killed the same way after hearing the same gospel. So it takes the gospel and the Holy Spirit to change men's hearts. I don't think there is any kind of advice that we can give at all. I would say if you have people in those situations, keep sharing the gospel with them and pray that the Lord change their heart, because that's what it's going to take. That's what it took for me.
And yeah, being from a rough background myself and being surrounded by people who just are struggling, I think that's so important. It's just the gospel and sharing the Bible. And I think a lot of people nowadays, they try to make the gospel seem attractive in some type of way. How can Christian hip-hop apply to sharing the gospel with others in rough situations?
I don't want to say being relevant, because people take that and jump over the deep end. Yeah. But it has to, when you're dealing with hip-hop and the gospel, it has to be presented in a relevant fashion. Because I could present the gospel in a hip-hop form, but if it's a form of hip-hop that people don't connect to, it's doing me no good. Right. It's just going to be something that they say, I don't want to hear that. But at the same time, I think people put a little too much weight on quote-unquote Christian hip-hop. They look for the album or the CD to be what goes out and does the evangelism and save the person. It's like, yo, y'all make good music, preach the gospel, and we'll pass the CDs out and people get saved. No, that's not the intent of the church. The intent of the church that the local body members would be the foot soldiers and take that word out and go to the street and be the ones to evangelize. Now, if you have a Christian hip-hop CD that shares the gospel in an effective way, there's nothing wrong with using it as a companion and saying, yo, I got a CD, you should check it out. Let it be a catalyst, a conversation starter, versus people thinking it's the end-all, be-all, because that's not the way. Christian hip-hop will never change communities in a whole, because that's not the way God intended it. Like, we can pass out all the CDs we want, that's dope, but with no follow-up and no discipleship and no intentional connecting of the local church, it's not going to have the effect that we would want it to have. But I definitely would say that if a person, you have different facets of Christians that do hip-hop or Christian hip-hop. Some people, their music is weighty. You have a Shaolin. Shaolin kicks weighty music. I love it. Solus Christus is a classic album to me. One of my favorite albums I ever heard. But then you have, I couldn't take a Shaolin album to the inner city of Detroit, to the inner city of St. Louis, and give it to them. Because one, the Bible says spiritual things are foolish to them. So I can't take it and say, here, listen to this. They're going to reject it. Or if it's just one of those God moments, they'll hear it and say, oh, I like the message, like I did with Cross Movement when I first heard them. I was like, I like the message, but I couldn't relate to the music. I was like, the message tight. So you have people that make music like that, but then you'll have other Christian hip-hop or Christians that rap, or however you want to word it, that the music won't be as weighty. Like you would hear in a church clothes, or you would hear in some of Craig's new stuff, or whoever else you want to pick out of the facet. But I think we need to, I know this was a little different than your question, but I think we need to use Christian hip hop for what it is, as a catalyst and not as a means, like the ends to the means. Because if we keep trying to do that, it'll never have the type of work. But I would love to see the body of Christ allow Christian artists to be missionaries. Like, we'll never be able to get into the space of being like the hip hop industry doesn't need albums sent over there. They need people sent over there. So we could make all the albums we want and say, oh, we hope it chart, we hope it do well. And once the album comes off the charts, they're out of radar. It's gone. Like, the industry checks charted albums. but we need people in that space. So I would love to see Christian hip hop and people let the artists flow freely to be able to invade spaces where the gospel is needed at, because that's what it's going to take in that light.
Let's keep talking music, man. We had Chronicles of an Ex-Hustler, where you came grimy, you came hard, told your background, and you came back with Beautiful Monster. And a lot of people thought you held back a little bit. It wasn't the grimy thizzle. We got Free from the Trap coming November the 20th. I heard rumors saying, man, you tried to say as much as you could without going to jail. Man, tell us what we can expect from Free from the Trap.
Free from the difference between Chronicles of an Ex-Hustler and Beautiful Monster was a season of life that I was in. Like Chronicles of an Ex-Hustler was one of the points where I felt free for God to say, I felt free by God to say, man, share what I've done for you. And I took a big risk on that because it was totally out of the norm of what Christian albums were. So I took a risk on, like, the average Christian rap fan, especially in that era, all they wanted to hear was something to make you go. Or they wanted to hear something that's real weighty, and it was neither of the two. Like, it was hood and it wasn't weighty. So I took a risk on doing it, but I followed the Lord in doing it. And people end up loving it. And it ended up being a good tool for those situations I was talking about. But with Beautiful Monster, I was just in another space. I'm like, man, I want to show people different facets of music that I like to make. But with Free from the Trap, the book is what I made that reference off of, because I'm doing an autobiography, the book Free from the Trap. And people kept saying, man, tell us everything. And I'm like, no, I can't tell you everything, because I'm not trying to send myself to jail. Or for that case, other people around me that were involved in my life with certain things that are still alive. But with the album, it's going to be another musical expression of the place that I'm in right now. The album is going to be more of a soundtrack to the book. Okay. So it's going to be, I was writing songs like, if this was this point in my life, what song would I want to hear? So, or what song would fit this scene? So I wrote it based off of that kind of stuff, but it's going to be musically different in some songs. Some songs are going to be back to Chronicles of an Ex-Hustler, grimy, and some songs are going to have Beautiful Monster feel. Then you're going to have stuff that I've never done before in front of people. So November 20th, Free from the Trap, we can see what it's going to be when the day come out.
Man, with that being said, man, a lot of people, man, from all the blogs already, you get the most criticism, man, out of any artist that I know for the music that you make, man. How do you handle that, man?
I make music for God. I make music for God. I make music for people that love it. And people that like it, like it. People that don't like it, they don't like it. But when I go to places where the people love it, like we went to Chicago last night, you had 4,000 people in the crowd. So they love it. So it's like I make music for people that love it. Like my albums do well. Everything that I've done in music does well. So God's hand is on it. I'm making music for the Lord. I'm making music for the people that people don't think about. Because we don't think about the poor. We don't think about the hood. We don't think about none of that because they don't spend money. But I think about them in my music, and God bless it. So people can criticize me all they want to. They criticize Jesus. People don't bother me. Talk never bothered me. I'm from a whole nother facet of life. Talking doesn't even affect me.
Man, so, we got 2 minutes, man. Last question. Eddie Manio tweeted, man, y'all was up till 4 in the morning because you was telling some hood captivating stories, man. Give us a snippet of one of the stories you were sharing, man.
November 20th, Free from the Trap. You can get all the stories you want in the book.
All right, man. Appreciate it, man.
God bless, man.
God bless, man.